Factor by grouping is another way or another method to factoring polynomials. You learned how to factor by greatest common factor last class. Today you are going to learn how to factor by grouping. Factor by grouping is my favorite method of factoring. Hopefully it'll be one of yours. So to be able to do factor by grouping, you have to have 4 terms. If you don't have 4 terms, we'll teach you a way to get 4 terms, but this lesson is all about the 4 terms of factor by grouping. So your first step always is to take out any overall GCF. So if we're looking at our first equation, or first polynomial here, I look at all 4 terms. There is no greatest common factor that I can pull out of all 4 terms. The second set is to group the 4 terms into 2 sets of binomials using parentheses. The way to do this is you just put the first 2 together and you put the last 2 together. I include this plus or minus sign with the second set of parentheses, and I'll show you why in a few examples. It's super helpful. Alright, step 3 says to factor out the greatest common factor from each set of terms. So I'm going to look at my first set of terms here, 5x cubed and negative 30x squared. So I'm going to look at the 5 and the 30, and I know I can factor out a 5 from both of those. And I'm going to look at the x squared and the x cubed. The most x's I can take out of both is the smallest amount there, which is x squared. So I'm going to take an x squared out of both. So I now look at the second set of parentheses, and I am going to factor out a positive, because this is a plus sign, and I'm going to put the plus sign there, and I'll show you why in a second. The greatest common factor of 2x and negative 12 is 2, so I'm going to factor out a positive 2 out of both. Since this term here does not have an x, I can't factor out any x's. Alright, so in my next step, this 5x squared is going to come to the front because it's the greatest common factor of that first set of terms. Now 5 divided by 5 is just 1. X cubed divided by x squared is x. Negative 30 divided by 5 is negative 6. And x squared and x squared simplify to 1, so I just leave that there. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the second set of parentheses. This plus 2 is going to go right here. And I'm going to now factor it out of that second set of parentheses. 2x divided by 2 just leaves me a 1x. And negative 12 divided by 2 is a negative 6. So I factored out the greatest common factor of both sets of parentheses. In step 4, we want to make sure the binomial remaining in each set of parentheses match. What that means is this x minus 6 and this x minus 6 are the same in both sets of parentheses. It is the greatest common factor. I can pull that x minus 6 out, write it one time, and then my remaining 2 terms here, 5x squared and plus 2, get written as one binomial. And this is the factored form of our original problem up top here. You can check your work. X times 5x squared gets you the 5x cubed. X and 2 gets you 2x. This negative 6 times 5x squared gets you that negative 30x. And negative 6 and 2 gets you that negative 12. So that is my factored form. Alright, let's try another one together. So we look at the parentheses. We always look for our greatest common factor first. Nothing goes into all 4 terms. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to put my first set of terms in parentheses, and I'm going to put my second set of terms. I include the negative in my second set for the exact reason that's going to happen in this equation. Or, I'm sorry, in this polynomial. So we look at the first set here. I'm going to pull my greatest common factor out of those. 3x cubed and 18x squared. 3 goes into both. X squared and x cubed, the greatest I can pull out is an x squared. I look at my second set of parentheses. Because this sign here is negative, I have to take out a negative value. So negative 7x and negative 42, I have a negative 7 would be the greatest common factor of those two terms. Because this sign is negative, I have to take out a negative, the one that begins the second set of parentheses. All right, so I write this 3x squared at the front. 3x cubed divided by 3x squared. 3 divided by 3 is 1. X cubed divided by x squared is x. 18 divided by 3 is 6. X squared divided by x squared simplifies out to just be 1. This negative 7 I pull out goes right here. Start my second set of parentheses. Negative 7x divided by negative 7. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is 1, leaving that x. Negative 42 divided by negative 7 is a positive 6. We check to make sure our insides are the same. I have an x plus 6 and an x plus 6. My x plus 6 can get written first. You only write it once because it's the greatest common factor after we pulled out the 3x squared and the negative 7. And then my 3x squared here and my negative 7 there get written as one set of terms. And that is the factor form of my original equation, my original polynomial. Just going to do a couple more together, and then you can try some on your own. All right, so we know we need to pull the greatest common factor out if there is one in the first step. If you look here, 3x cubed, negative 6x squared, 15x, and minus 30, I can take a 3 out of everything here. I cannot take any x's out because that 30 does not have an x connected to it. So now I'm just going to have x cubed minus 2x squared plus 5x minus 10. Okay, I am going to ignore that 3 for a little bit, and I'm just going to factor this inside here. So if I were you, I would rewrite this right here. And now we start our method. So I'm going to put the first two terms together and the second two terms together. I then look in the first, I can take an x squared out of both. And I look at my second, since this sign right here is positive, I'm taking out a positive 5 because that's the greatest common factor of both. I'm going to start my process. That x squared I just pulled out goes in the front. X cubed divided by x squared is x minus 2. Take that 5 and put it in the front, the plus 5. Include the plus sign. That leaves an x, and negative 10 divided by 5 is a negative 2. My insides are the same, so I write them once. I put the x squared and the plus 5 together. This is almost my final answer. This was the factored form of my inside. This 3 up front here has to get brought down to the front for it to be my final answer. All right, one more to do together, and then you're going to try the last one by yourself. All right, here I look for a greatest common factor. I don't see any. So I'm going to put my first two together and my last two together. My greatest common factor in the first is a 5, x squared and x cubed. Make an x squared to pull out. I look at my second set of parentheses, x and 5. What is the greatest common factor? I can't take anything out of x and 5. I could, though, just take out a plus 1. So my greatest common factor there is 1. And this will happen every time. If you can't take anything out of the second or the first set of terms, you're going to take out the plus 1 or the minus 1 depending on this sign here. So I take out the 5x squared. 5x cubed divided by 5x squared just leaves me an x. 25 divided by 5 leaves me a 5. And the x squared and x squared just simplify to 1. That plus 1 I took out, just leaving x plus 5 again. X plus 5 is the same in both, so I write it once. And then I put my 5x squared and my plus 1 together. And this is my final answer. Alright, go ahead and write down the last one. Pause the video, try it yourself, and then I'm just going to work through the steps. Okay, if you have any questions, please just ask your teacher or stop by for some office hours.